Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Ba-da-ba-ba. All right. Promoter 101. 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 Promoter 101.
This is Anthony Diaz with Six Man. You're on Promoter 101.
Man, I love our theme song. It just gets stuck in my head for days. Big shout out to APA's Craig Newman for composing and performing it. As we mentioned in the theme song, it is Promoter 101. This is episode 39. I'm your host, Dan Steinberg, kicking it old school with my special guest co-host homie from Nederlander, head of marketing, Jamie Loeb.
Hey, Dan. I'm thrilled to be on the podcast. I'm not quite sure that you're street enough to pull that intro off, but that's okay. We've got a solid show for you today. We've got head of talent at House of Blues, Michael Yerke, and the festival production mastermind behind Bottle Rock and Coachella, Ken Deans. We'll explore how Atvenu is changing the merch game with technology when Shaun Eidson stops by. And we'll be joined by Diviner Productions' Sam Ard for 3 questions.
Hi, this is JC, Jeff Cohen from Toronto, Canada. Collective Concerts, Turf. Used to be Against the Grain. And I own the legendary Horseshoe Tavern in Lee's Palace. And I'm coming to you from Promoter 101.
Thursday, September 7th, Promoter 101 comes to the WA conference in Seattle, Washington. Featured guests include ICM partners Andrea Johnson and the Triple Doors' Scott Jampino.
On October 12th, Promoter 101 will be at the Berklee Popular Music Institute in Boston.
October 16th, we will be doing a live recording for my IBA in Nashville.
Keep up with us on Twitter. Dan is at The Jew, and the show is at Promoters 101. That's promoters, plural.
If you have thoughts or feedback about the podcast, we want to hear from you. Send us an email with your ideas and thoughts to steiny@promoter101.net.
Be sure to subscribe to Promoter 101 whenever you podcast, and please help us spread the word by telling your friends.
If you missed any of the past episodes, you can always catch up at promoter101.net.
Hi, this is Julia Frank from Wizard Promotions in Germany, and we're on Promoter 101.
Time for News of the Week. Pandora CEO Tim Westergren stepped down from his role at the music streaming service last week amid a company-wide shakeup. The company's president and CMO also exited.
Brock Jones has left Comcast Spectre. We spoke with him about that earlier, and he commented, "I'm excited to begin my new venture, 191 Touring. Independent promoting is immensely rewarding. There's nothing better than helping an act you believe in grow in a success. Plus, the live music environment is the single best part of our industry, and we have the singular best gigs in the world." We at Promoter 101 wish Brock all the luck in the world with his new biz, 191 Touring.
Robert Silliman continues his losing streak. IQ reports Silliman auditor resigns over illegal withdrawal. BDO, the accountant and auditor for Function, has tendered its resignation after discovering alleged unauthorized payments of company funds to CEO Robert Silliman.
Billboard is reporting that Treasure Island Festival is going to be taking a year off.
Taylor Swift celebrated a huge week with her catalog on Spotify. According to Billboard, her music was streamed almost 50 million times in the first week, which according to Hypebot generated almost $400,000.
Rest in peace to the Afghan Whigs Dave Roser, who passed this last Wednesday.
Jay-Z released his album Thursday night, and the Twitterverse is going nuts over it.
That's it for the news of the week.
Hello, this is Sarah Mertz.
Rick Barrow.
Nick Light.
Mark Geiger.
This is Lee Anderson.
Kevin Lyman.
John Giddings.
Jim Runge. Jeff White.
Brian Zisk.
Chuck Randall.
Brian O'Connell.
Andrea Johnson.
Adam Parsons.
Darielle Hyatt.
Ben Mensch.
Jamie Miller.
Billy Wayne Davis.
Brandon Frankel.
Mitch LaFon.
Jake Gould.
Gary Smith. Jeff Cohen.
You are on Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
Celebrating birthdays this week.
Monday, we have David Temulevich and venue GM Steve Martin.
Tuesday, STG's Jason Ross, Metallica's manager Mark Ryder, Gold Star's Jim McCarthy, Mike Maloney, and Pat Rayner.
Wednesday, ICM partners Andrea Johnson, Donnie Reese, Brian Green, the Barrymores' Steve Sperling, manager Adam Haft, and news CEO Jesse Kirschbaum.
Thursday, ICM partners Megan White and Christiane Weiss.
Friday, road manager Brendan Hoffman.
Saturday, Bob Zevers and Scott Sherrill.
Sunday, Dave Cobb.
Guy gets the day to himself. He is the biggest in the business right now. Hey, happy birthday to everybody from the gang at Promoter 101.
Hey there, this is Andy Gould. I'm the managing director, CEO, the boss, chief cook and bottle washer at Spectacle Entertainment. Been in the industry for a long time, and you are listening to Promoter 101.
The business is about getting in the door, but more importantly, it's about being someone who's the go-to guy, being in the loop for all the information that's flowing around you.
I 100% agree, Dan. We always say this is a relationship business. So once you're through the door, you have to be the go-to guy or girl that people can depend on. That means getting the work done fast and correctly.
I kind of like what you did there, Jamie.
Well, thank you.
If you're a promoter, that means getting the avails, offers, contracts, deposits, marketing plans, and advancing all turned around quickly.
If you're a manager, this means getting a plan for the album cycle and the tour to your team and approved by your artists.
If you're a venue, it means replying to holds, making the deals happen that need to happen, being the local boots on the ground, and expressing the other traffic that happens to be coming through the market.
If you're the agent, it means getting the routing, avails, and offers hammered out to turn around quick confirmations.
If you're on the production side of the business, this means advancing, communicating, and showing up on time and on budget.
Dan, I'm picking up a theme here. It all comes down to solid communication and being timely.
Exactly. With that said, do these things consistently, and you will become the guy or the girl for many of the people in this industry that will be respected and want to work with you because of your strong ethic and come back to you to count on you time after time, and they will reward you with more business. That's what it's all about, being in the loop.
Look, we're not saying you can't make a mistake. We all do from time to time. But own it, fix it, make up for it quickly, and then move on.
Exactly. So that's what's about being in the loop. The information comes to you because you earn it. You're the guy they call first, and then they reward you with more business. Do a shitty job and nobody's calling you back again. It's really that simple.
This is Mike Hayes with ICM. You're on Promoter 101.
Let's check in on Dan's Promoter 101 tweets for the past week. You were certainly active this week. Is there anyone who didn't get in your crosshairs? Let's start with this one. When you've given in and given someone their way, and they still want to fight over it after you've already said yes. Hashtag Promoter 101. Hashtag take the yes.
Yeah, sometimes it seems people just are looking for the fight more than they're actually looking for the yes. Sorry to disappoint you by giving you your way.
When an agent sends avails for club dates for 2019, WTF?
That stands for what the fuck. Man, I honestly not ready to start thinking ahead that far. I mean, I'm working in the now.
When you request the most common scaling of a venue from a box office, and they send you their X-map with no notes or directions.
It's hard to scale a venue you've never been in before. Even harder when the venue doesn't give you any direction or tell you how many seats are in a row or even a section. Guys, help us out a little bit.
When the manager asks for the offer the second you send the avails, like you are too fucking dumb to know what the next step is in the process.
I'm OCD, so I kind of get it, but at the same time, this tends to get under my skin.
When a venue tells you second on all for a block of dates.
They don't even have to look. Point being, they cannot give you a first hold on anything, or will not. Or they don't want you to bail on their venue because you're actually 9 holds deep. Either way, it's an old club trick, and it kind of sucks.
Just fess up. When the deal passes the point of any possible return on your investment, and they still want more.
Time and money are resources that our counterparts don't seem to take seriously. But there is an opportunity cost for committing any time and money to any project, and it limits what else you can take on.
When the phone rings and it's the subject of the last Promoter 101 post.
Yikes! Yeah, this happens sometimes, and some people just have a better sense of humor than others.
That does it for Promoter 101 tweets. You can follow Dan at the Jew on Twitter.
Hey everyone, this is Cindy Leinott,
Bruce Solar,
Ali Spagnola,
Ari Herstand,
J-Bo Lewis, Michael Yerke, John Meglin,
David Ritz, Larry Butler,
Andy Gould,
John Finberg,
Kira Finkenberg,
Jonathan Shank.
You are listening to Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
It's time once again for 3 questions, where listeners can come on the show and get to ask us any 3 questions they'd like. Industry, personal, whatever they want. Most importantly, we haven't seen the questions in advance.
This week, we are joined by Sam Ard of Diviner Productions.
Promoter 101 on 3 questions we've got from Diviner Productions, Sam Ard. Sam, thank you so much for joining us on 3 questions.
Awesome. I'm glad to be on the podcast.
Cool. So let's jump right into it. What are your questions?
Okay, so my first one is, what are some interesting ways that you guys have managed to impress agents aside from having a lot of people out at your shows?
You know, I'm always a big fan of trying to stay in the agent's thought process in their mind. So I love sending little thank you cards and swag and picking up dinners and making sure that I'm in their office or seeing them at shows. I see the guys I work with 5-6 times a year minimum. Like, make sure that I'm hanging with them, spending time available to them. You know, always on their mind. That's the name of the game. If you're out of sight, you're out of mind. Cool. What's your next question?
All right, my next question is, in you guys' opinion, what do you believe has to happen to the internet to be able to allow artists to make money off of their music like they used to back in the old days before the internet?
It's an interesting question. Like, honestly, I think the internet has helped the industry. The only ones that have really taken a hit are the record labels, and if they've used iTunes and the other internet applications well, they can more than make up for that money. It's the best way to sample. You don't even need to depend on radio anymore to break a tune. Evan Friday is our sound engineer, and he might have some great insight to this question as well. Evan?
Well, let's see here. My perspective is that, I believe that studios should have never really let iTunes kind of control the market on the file format, the MPEG here. So as soon as it became apparent that the internet was going to become the primary method of file distribution for music, the labels really should have gotten together and agreed on a file format, a universal way of allowing consumers to ingest this music, then spent the rest of their time on just making it, universally available on all the different portable music players out there. Additionally, I believe that it was the fact that labels refused to move away from physical media, which created a burden to the consumer and, just caused them to take the easier road of downloading the content.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Evan.
What's your last question?
What are some things to watch out for as a young promoter and entrepreneur in such a grueling industry?
There's real easy to fuck people over in this business, not give them the full anything, not follow all the way through. And it seems like it's a shortcut sometimes, but it always catches up. You burn bridges long term. It affects your relationship. Pay bills on time as soon as you get them. Make sure that nobody has to ask you for money. It becomes an awkward thing. Make sure that you're the guy that doesn't owe anyone. You're the easiest person to get money out of. You pay every bill. You make sure everybody leaves with exactly what you promised them, if not more, and that nobody ever leaves with a reason to be upset with you. You want to be ahead of that curve. Quality's job 1. Thanks for taking time, Sam. I really appreciate having you on Promoter 101, and thanks for listening to the podcast.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I really, really enjoyed it.
Thanks for joining us on Promoter 101 for 3 questions, Sam. If you'd like to be on 3 questions and be asking us the question on an upcoming episode of Promoter 101, please email us at steiny@promoter101.net.
Hey, this is Rob McDermott from Mad Mac Entertainment, and you're listening to Promoter 101.
This week, Dan caught up with House of Blues head of talent Michael Yerke at the Sunset Marquee in Los Angeles.
Promoter 101, we're at the Sunset Marquee, and I'm hanging out with an old friend, Michael Yerke. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
So you have possibly the job where you book more club shows than anybody else possibly in the world.
I don't know if I book more club shows, but I would tell you our division books more club shows than anybody in the world.
Which you oversee.
Yeah. So we have 60, 70 odd clubs and theaters across the country. And our division, House of Blues Entertainment, is not just House of Blues. It's House of Blues. It's Fillmore's. It's Irving Plaza. It's the Wiltern Theater, Comerica Theater. And pretty much I would say it's from 4,000 and down. of rooms we either own or operate or exclusively book across the country. So, and we're growing. We opened up a couple of new rooms this year. Feb 1 at 20 Monroe Live in Grand Rapids. We opened March 1 at House Blues Anaheim, new one, 1900 cap, almost double the size of our last House Blues Anaheim at Disney, and which we're no longer on Disney property. And then we're in a joint venture with Charlie from Stateside Productions, opening the Van Buren in Phoenix, middle of August of this year, and always looking for new opportunities.
Excellent. So you are House of Blues, which is Live Nation. Besides the venue size, is there any distinction besides that, or is it pretty much one booking system?
Oh, it's definitely one booking system. I mean, we have a whole team, and it's not only the booking side, it's operations, it's marketing that is managing, operating, and booking any of the venues that fall under that umbrella from 4,000 cap and down. So, and again, it's not just the booking side, it's the whole team of the venues we own and operate.
So Los Angeles lost the club on Sunset.
Yep.
Is that going to be replaced at some point?
We're been actively looking for probably 3 or 4 years because our lease was coming up.
And that was the flagship, right?
It wasn't the first. Actually, the very first House of Blues was a small 200 cap one in Boston on Harvard Square. The second one was actually House of Blues in New Orleans, and third was House of Blues in L.A. But everyone knew it as kind of the flagship.
I mean, it was right across the street from Tower Records.
Right by Tower Records. The home office at that point in time was right across the street as well, which I think red lights in those offices now. So anyways, yes, our development and real estate folks have been looking for 3-4 years. We knew our lease was up. We haven't found a spot yet. We're very actively looking, but it's hard to find the right deal on real estate in LA.
Seems like a big problem for a lot of people. All right, so let's talk about that. Let's go back to Chicago for a second, because that's really where you got your name in the industry. You were the guy that went in to book Chicago House of Blues and open it up when Jam owned that market almost exclusively.
They did, yeah.
I mean, essentially, they sent you into San Francisco to buy against Bill Graham with that. It's just it's a pretty impossible feat.
It was a little bit tough, but I'm a native of Chicago, so I started by booking a club called the Avalon, which is right next door to the Vic Theater, almost shares a wall with it. It's no longer there, but that room was legendary, had a couple of incarnations. Anyways, I booked the Avalon. And then from there, I booked the China Club in Chicago for a couple of years, and then the Cubby Bear. And so I was booking the Cubby Bear. Kevin Morrow called me about the potentially booking the House of Blues in Chicago. And as I kept meeting with him and seeing the venue, because it was still being built at that time, I just kept thinking to myself, this place is looking nicer and nicer every time I get down there. And if you haven't seen it, that venue is modeled after the Opera House in Prague, where Mozart composed Don Giovanni. It doesn't really look like any other House of Blues. And it's a beautiful opera house. So I just kept thinking, I'm getting certain things because I'm either being more tenacious or just responding to people that are falling through the cracks from Jam, right? Who had definitely owned the market for a long time. But one of the main reasons, or the key reasons why I took the House of Blues job was I felt like House of Blues is going to be there. Jam's definitely there. And there was going to be very little that falls through the cracks for me at Cubby Bear at that point in time. So
you were going to move down the totem pole real quickly.
Yeah, I just felt like we weren't going to be able to compete. And this room, every time I kept going down there, just looked more and more beautiful. And I just said, as someone who promotes shows, the first thing is, what's the room you're booking, right? And couldn't have a more beautiful room. So I felt like I had a leg up there. And, and then just hopefully my relationships and support with House of Blues, with Kevin and everybody would carry over, and it did. So I'm glad I made the move. And Cubby Bear's still around, does great business right outside of the front door of Wrigley Field, but it doesn't get a lot of national acts any longer. So House of Blues and Jam are competing for all those acts every day in and day out still.
Yeah, although the market has certainly changed quite a bit.
It has changed, and so then House of Blues was eventually bought by Live Nation, and so what the total company in Chicago has really, it has evolved, because between House of Blues, we also booked the Bottom Lounge, which is a 700 cap room there. We have an ownership interest in the Aragon now, and then the Northern Ireland Amphitheater. So, it's really changed, what it was even when I left 7 or 8 years ago to what it is now. Live Nation has a much stronger position, let's say, in the market than we had, when House of Blues started.
Okay, so you did very well in Chicago. Obviously, the company thought so, because they moved you to LA to oversee more of the venues and booking. Yep. How did that come about, and when was that change?
That was about 8.5 years ago. Perry Lavoine had the position before me, and Perry was moving up to book tours for the Amp and Arena division. So Ben Whedon called and offered me the job. I thought long and hard about it because I'd never lived anywhere else. Mark Campana, who's now the co-president of North American Concerts, was my boss at the time and spent a tremendous amount of time with me going through different scenarios on my decision to potentially take this position. He was I can't thank him enough for how generous he was with his time to discuss it with me. And it took me a bit, and eventually I did take the gig, and I haven't looked back. I've been really appreciative of the opportunity that it's afforded me. One of the reasons why I took it was I felt like in Chicago, Mark had said, hey, you have a job with me for as long as I'm here, which is great and very reassuring. But there also was a ceiling to what I could accomplish in Chicago. And I felt like if I was going to get a bigger opportunity, my daughter at the time was 3 years old, that would be a good time to move to take advantage of the opportunity. And if I waited and I passed on this, maybe she's 6, 7, 8 years old and she's in first or second grade and it's harder to move and all that. So I just felt like the timing was right. The opportunity was there, and it's been great. I've learned a ton.
The actual interesting viewpoint of your career to go from booking those small clubs in Chicago, probably in a back room of a bar by yourself, to working off the Sunset Strip in one of the biggest entertainment booking offices in the industry in the world.
Yeah.
It's quite a ride.
It's been great. I feel super lucky. Talking about, early stages is when I was booking Avalon, I loaded the band up these 2 flights of stairs, very narrow staircase, like helping carrying Primus's board up the stairs, Tool, all these people. So I'd help load in, I'd market, I'd put the show on sale, I'd book the show. You did everything, and which was great because it gave me exposure and appreciation to everything that goes into a show. Whereas I do think in some cases, even with a company as big as ours, some people come into it and they may hold one position. And now we have box office people and marketing and all that stuff, which is absolutely necessary and great. But I do think there's some value in, maybe you're just out of college and working at a small room, because I think you'll get an idea of everything that goes into a production, and I always felt like, I had a marketing degree at DePaul in Chicago, and, booking a show is one thing, but you have to sell the tickets or else it's not a successful show. So, having to be the marketing guy and also, what our production guys deal with on a daily basis in terms of advancing shows, loading in, loading out.
Which you certainly have to understand. If you're going to budget a show, you need to know the difference between a tour that has 2 vans versus 4 semis. You have to know what is possible and what's it going to cost.
Yeah. And just also what, honestly, what people experience on the road. Like if you're dealing with the crew at those early stages, I used to say to people in Chicago when I was booking House of Blues, we'd have a training program where different people, whether they were a restaurant manager, or club manager, or whatever, would spend some time with different people in the venue. And I would always say to people that, understand that tonight is one stop on many stops for this artist, right? And we want to be the oasis in the desert. We want to be the place that they look forward to playing, that they feel like it was, the right amount of loaders were there when they got there. The catering was good. We want it to be a relief because we don't want them to be the place where they get to and they're getting like, soggy Cheerios or, or bad food or cold pizza, whatever. We want to be the place they look forward to. And so I think when you spend some time talking to those people, because you are loading them in and dealing with all this sort of stuff, you get an appreciation for what can make their day a little bit better and why they might think more favorably of your venue. Because we're competing. We're competing every day against, other, 930 Club, the Vic, the Metro in Chicago, the Webster Hall in New York. I think you have to have that kind of appreciation.
Okay, so you come into LA and you're booking against Golden Voice. You're fighting the Vic in Chicago and the Jam guys. Mm-hmm. You've got venues in DC and you are fighting 930 Club there. You are fighting fronts in every different market. Now you're going to Phoenix and you're going to be fighting Tom LaPenna's Marquee Club.
Yep.
So you are fighting in all of these different markets. Obviously, there's synergy in booking full runs.
Yep.
At what point does it become we developed the act, we treated them better, we've got better production? How much of that are you guys leaning on?
Oh, we lean on that a ton. I mean, we take a lot of pride in the fact that we believe we run the best venues in the country. Now, there's going to be some that are run really well. It doesn't mean other people don't do a good job, but I think like our ops team and all the people that work for us, I think we have some of the best people in the business. So we absolutely are going into for example, trying to buy a tour that's playing 1,000 cap rooms. We're going to talk about how we can do a great job marketing. We're going to talk about how we can do a great job taking care of you all along the way. And there is synergy in that fact that there's, some key people that you're dealing with that can ensure that when you get to DC, when you get to Chicago, when you get to Phoenix, you get to wherever, that, that you're treated as well as we can treat somebody at this level. Obviously there are some restrictions. It's not an arena. So, there's certain things you can't do at a club and their space is limited. But yeah, I think we take a lot of pride in that. Absolutely.
You ever feel like you're just battling every day in every market?
We always will be, because I think that the barrier to entry, at least in the theater club side, I think the barrier to entry is so small that we will always have competitors. They're never going to go away. Agents and managers don't want to see competitors go away either. So it's different if you have an arena or an amphitheater. It's not easy to, turn around tomorrow and turn some space into an amphitheater or turn it into a club or turn it into an arena. But you can absolutely rent a storefront or an old garage or whatever and turn it into a 700, 800, 1,000 cap, 1,500 cap club. And though it's sizable money to me, if it was my own money, $1 million or something like that, but you put together a group of investors and you want to be in the music business, you're going to find that's all. I believe that's always going to be there. We're always going to have competitors, whether they're established or whether they are, somebody who's decided they want to be in the music business. I think we're always going to have them.
Okay, so before we skip, you'd said you were Chicago boys, so I got it for the record. Mm-hmm. Al's Beef or Portillo's?
I like Al's Beef better, and I would actually say Super Dog in terms of hot dogs.
The crinkly fries.
Yes.
And the fist print on the bun when you unwrap it.
Yeah, I love it.
I think Zaleska would probably back you up on that. Yep. It's an ongoing, interesting thing.
Yeah.
I think Brian O'Connell started that fight here.
Yeah. What did he say?
Actually, I believe he went with Portillo's.
Really? But I like Al's Beef better.
So I'll get a lot of crap from some of the other promoters by pointing this out, but House of Blues actually develops probably more talent in the United States than any other promoter. I might get some flack from the Bowery guys about this because they certainly do their share, and so does Golden Voice. But nationally, you guys do more development than most, and you guys keep the clubs working, so you have to, as far as support acts and cut down shows and developing. Like, you guys need the next level of headliners, so you guys are more on that front line than most of us, actually.
Yeah, I think last year we did somewhere close to 7,000 shows, right? So in
the club division of House of Blues.
Correct. Yeah. I would absolutely agree that I think we do more artist development maybe than record labels, if you consider, and I don't have the exact figures off the top of my head, but what we pay in guarantees on an annual basis and in some respects what we lose at the door on an annual basis.
Are you saying you, as a division, you lose at the door at the end of the year?
Yeah, we do. I wish we didn't, but we do.
Can we sidestep for a second and talk about that? Why does that make sense?
It's not what we strive to do, I can tell you that.
But you keep opening venues.
We do. Look, without the inside, you couldn't promote in that way, right? You absolutely couldn't.
So having the bar and the other revenue streams, and we don't have to get into all of those, but the shows don't necessarily lose, but you lose at the door.
Correct. Yeah, I'm talking purely.
But having the bar and factoring in the other revenue streams, it is a profitable business.
It is a profitable business, but it would not be without those inside revenue streams that you get as being an owner or operator.
Okay,
Absolutely.
But clarifying that's important.
Yep.
Okay, go back to the development. I'm sorry.
No, so I was saying that we do, like I said, 7,000 shows. We have a vested interest in developing relationships with artists at their earliest stages, especially the ones that we think are going to have a chance of growing, be it the next 21 Pilots, be it the next Future, whoever that is, because A, as a company, we want to develop that relationship early on. B is we have 60, 70 venues that we're trying to fill every night of the week if we can, because every night it's sitting there empty. You don't make any money. No one wanders into the Fillmore, in Charlotte on a Tuesday night if there's not a show. So we need to develop those relationships, and the ones that we pinpoint or that we target as being the artists that we think have a chance to grow, we're trying to do touring deals. And that doesn't mean we're going to promote every single date of theirs, because we're primarily focused on markets where we own or operate a room or where we have a booking relationship or can promote it properly. We're not trying to do shows in Boise, maybe Boise now, but, in the Dakotas or in Iowa. We don't have anyone there. We don't have anybody on the ground. We're not going to do a good job promoting the show. We're looking at, can we get 20, 25 markets if we have the right size rooms for that artist? Whereas if you're an arena act, you can find an arena everywhere in the country. So maybe the artist can do 30 dates. They're trying to get all 30 dates. We're trying to get all the dates where we think we have the right size room and we can do a good job on behalf of the artist.
So you mentioned Boise, and Creston Thornton is now an Live Nation employee.
Yeah.
Does his venue in that market, Revolution, is that now a Live Nation club that you guys operate?
No, and we haven't put anything in there yet. We were looking at a couple of tours that we didn't get the tour, so it didn't pan out. I actually just met Creston probably 3-4 months ago.
He's a trip. He's a good guy.
It seems like an interesting character.
Boise is an interesting market, and obviously what they had done as Bravo through those markets before they had split off to do other things and come back to the industry was amazing amount of volume that they were running through a lot of those markets that no one else pays attention to. And I know Jade Nielsen's doing a lot of those markets since Bravo had stepped out of it, but there's a lot of business to be had in the Dakotas and Missoula and Boise, and it seems like a lot of the industry has kind of forsaken that part of the country, and it seems like Creston being there is probably going to change that landscape a little bit.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, it is interesting. Sometimes you look at different tours and you start to look at history, and there's certain markets that some people just don't get to, right? Because of time. At times, like I'm doing a tour with Milky Chance, for example, German act. They're coming over on these like 3 or 4 times in the summer, really anchored by a festival. And then we're going to have a bunch of dates but that's like 10 or 12 dates in January. They're going to be the markets that they couldn't play because they're playing a festival. For example, Chicago, New York, Dallas, Houston, because they're playing ACL. So
they'll get to play the shows, and then they'll actually get to play a headline show after they clear the radius.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll do those in January. But, they have like 20 dates. Jabo has them available in the U.S. It's like the 9th to the 29th, and that's it. So there are going to be certain markets that maybe they have a want to hit, but they just aren't going to hit.
So Sioux Falls may not get a date this time.
I can't speak for that, but I haven't seen it on the routing yet.
Yeah, okay. It's definitely when you have those priorities of the top 10 clubs, obviously you're trying to figure out if I get 10 markets, I'm going to try and fill them in my own venues first because that's your responsibility.
Yeah, and look, there's even times where I'll be talking to an agent about a tour, and we have House of Blues in Cleveland, we have Bogarts in Cincinnati, we have the Murat Theater and Egyptian Room in Indy, and we don't have anything in Columbus, but it's a really good market, right? So they say, I can only spend I can only hit 2 of those 4 markets, and one of them might be Columbus because they have a really strong alternative radio station, so therefore we're out of that. So you're kind of going, can we squeeze in a Cincinnati, much less like, a Sioux Falls or some of these other places you mentioned.
Priority of the list. Makes sense. So when you're scouting all of this talent of who's going to play the rooms, because you've got to be a couple steps ahead, and you are. It's like when we talked about Chase Rice a couple years ago, and we were both kind of on that page of this is going to happen.
Yeah.
You were right there with and country's not necessarily always been your front running, but you've gotten into all of those fields and know that Chase Rice is about to happen, and we're there. And same thing back when we go back to Dirks. Like you saw some of that stuff early. It's like the indicators of following all of those different genres to keep all of those rooms filled. That's got to be just a full-time nightmare.
I don't know, it's a nightmare. It's actually a lot of fun. And by the way, it's not just me. We have a touring team of Bill Dwight, Kelly Capp, Andy Messersmith, Alex Maxwell, who Alex just moved to Nashville, started working for us in the beginning of August. So it's not just me. There's a lot of people on the team and definitely have interests in certain genres, maybe more so. Bill's doing great in hip hop. Andy has a real expertise and knowledge in like more in the EDM space. Alex, a little bit of everything, because Alex booked the Troubadour here before she started working for us, but being a little more focused now in country, and we didn't have anybody based in Nashville from a theater and club perspective. We did, and the Amp and Arena side with Brian Traeger, and then obviously Brian O'Connell being the king of country, being based down there doing country touring.
Yeah, he does a couple shows.
He does a couple of shows a year. I did get on the country thing not early. I got on the country point about 4 or 5 years ago because I noticed what Brian O'Connell was doing for us and how successful they were, the runs he was having in our amphitheaters, and also looking at who the audience was. And it wasn't just suburban. There was becoming we all saw there was becoming a younger college age audience that was getting into it, and it was becoming more people in cities that
becoming closer to pop.
Yeah. We thought there was an opportunity because in the country space, a lot of the artists would either be the first of 4 on one of Brian's tours, or if the record didn't hit, they'd play playing fairs and festivals and honky tonks. And I just felt like if we could do a couple of tours a year and start developing relationships and some of those artists that might be that first or second on one of Brian's tours. With Brian's help, I thought we could be successful. Again, it's looking at how do you program and book these rooms as successfully as possible and as for many nights as possible. And Brian was great. I mean, he's a Chicagoan also, so I think we've known each other for a while, but he absolutely opened a lot of doors for us and for me with the community down there. And I think we did a really good job with some of those first tours that gave him confidence that he could stick his neck out for us and that we would deliver in terms of marketing and experience for the artists.
He basically vouched for you with all these guys.
He absolutely did. And without his support, it wouldn't have opened up that door for us. And now, we've come, and always kind of did, but realized that for us indoors at clubs and theaters, our country touring season is about September 15th to about March 15th. We don't want to be doing tours up against Brian's mega ticket shows. We're never going to win. The radio stations are vested in those shows. We're never going to get any.
Yeah, the traffic matters on that.
Yeah, we're not going to get there, and so we don't go after artists in that time frame. So we're looking at. It turns out we do a lot of tours with artists that are on one of Brian's tours in the summer, and once they get off, then we're then promoting them in their headlining runs in 1,000, 2,000, 3,000.
So you're converting those support acts into their headline runs.
Yeah,
in the smaller rooms.
Yeah, and then they might continue to graduate. We did a great tour with Dustin Lynch a couple years ago. Chase Rice, we've done a number of tours. We're looking at another Chase Rice tour for this fall. So yeah, it's definitely been a great part of the business. And without Brian's help, we probably wouldn't be as far along as we are.
Now, you guys have rebranded a number of the rooms you work with the Fillmore name.
Couple, or opened them new, like the Fillmore in Charlotte. We did do that.
The Gleason.
Right. There was a little run. There was a time not long after I moved out here, where a couple of rooms, like Irving Plaza became the Fillmore and the Gleason became the Fillmore and a few others. But after maybe about a year, I think it was cooler heads prevailed or smarter heads prevailed and decided let's go back to Irving Plaza in New York. The Fillmore in Miami.
There was also a Fillmore East at one point that was kind of epic to begin with. So
right.
To have a second Fillmore there was a little weird. In that market in particular, New York.
The company backed off rebranding any of the venues, except for the Fillmore in Miami was the Gleason, and it still stays today as known as the Fillmore Miami.
That was an interesting decision, but also an amazing brand in the Fillmore San Francisco that you guys picked up. And when the Denver opened up and Chuck and Perloff decided to make Mammoth Gardens and redo it and grace it with the Fillmore name.
Yeah,
there was something certainly special to turning what was a pretty crappy venue into a
I think it was a roller rink at one point.
It was, and it was a warehouse essentially, but the money that they had put into that, the Bill Graham guys, to turn that into a real venue.
Yeah.
Like, to grace that name made sense, but they weren't killing any history. Nobody cared about the Mammoth Gardens name because there was nothing special to Mammoth. But putting the Fillmore name, and that was the second, and there was definitely a connection between Denver and San Francisco, between Barry and Barry Fay and going back into Bill Graham.
Yeah.
So that connection there, was there a lot of weight on deciding which rooms would get to grace that impossibly cool brand that the Fillmore is?
I wasn't out here and part of those decisions, to be quite frank. So I couldn't speak really to that part of it. I do know that we are opening new Fillmore venues, but new rooms, not rebranding anything that existed as a Fillmore.
But you're building rooms to spec that stand up to your standards.
Yeah.
That gives you a lot of control.
Mm-hmm.
What new markets are you guys going into that you're able to talk about?
Well, I mentioned Phoenix, I mentioned Grand Rapids. That was a new market for us. We didn't have anything there. We were booking shows at some venues there, but we didn't own or operate anything there. I mean, look, I would tell you we're looking almost everywhere. We're trying to, especially in probably the top 25 markets, is look at, do we have the right vertical, of rooms? Do we have the right entry level at 300 to 500 cap? Do we have the right 1,000 or 1,500 cap room? And do we have the right 2,500 cap, theater or ballroom? We're always looking to expand and try and, I guess, close ranks, because it's frustrating. Like in Chicago, we'll book somebody at the Bottom Lounge. We'll book them at House of Blues. And if they're worth 2,000 tickets and they're not a theater act, probably playing the Riv, and we lose them for a bit, and then hopefully we pick up the relationship with them at the Aragon or at one of the boutique amphitheater or whatever. But yeah, we're actively looking, even in markets that we're in, to see where are the holes and how can we fill them.
From start to bottom, so there's never a miss on them all the way up.
Yeah, and look, you're gonna have some, like there's certain agents, managers that are going to want to play for, the Mercury or whatever, the Bowery guys or whoever it may be. But we're trying to have at least the answer and an option at all levels, as opposed to not being there and then trying to get them at 1,500 cap, right? You want to, that's one of the nice things that, for example, the Fillmore in Philadelphia room we opened about a year and a half ago, where we have we built a small room in there called the Foundry, which is 400 cap. Then you have the Fillmore, which cuts down nicely. It's full cap is 2,500, but it cuts down to 25 or to 15. And we have the TLA at 1,000. So we feel like, and then Jeff Gordon has Festival Pier. And so we feel like we have that, that ladder for people to grow in Philadelphia now, right? And we're looking at in other key markets. Do we have that right situation?
You guys have so many buyers around the country between both divisions. Is there ever a point where you guys are competing for shows between the concert division of Live Nation and the club division of House of Blues in the same market?
Sometimes, yeah. Houston's one of them right now. There's a new building called Smart Financial, which we don't own or operate, that our Amp and Arena guys are booking, and then we have the Revention Center, which is 3,400.
So you're competing with Anthony Nicolaitis for shows?
Jason Rio, because Jason moved there. I don't know if you know, but Jason moved there beginning of this calendar year.
Anthony's still there, though, right?
Anthony's in Dallas. Jason's in Houston.
Oh, okay.
Jason worked for us he was a manager with Aware.
Anthony was overseeing both markets.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, Jason just moved there. So there's a situation where we look at, there's been some shows where we go, what's the best situation for the artist? And where is it most beneficial to us? And if they're worth 4,000, 5,000 tickets, there's been a few times where we're, trying to have good conversation and find, determine what's the right thing for everybody.
It's an interesting thing when you're so big, you're competing with yourself.
Not often, but there are some instances, yeah.
Now, Rapino has made a really big push over the last handful of years to be a truly global company and has been successful with that. Is that something we're going to see more with House of Blues moving forward? Are you guys going to move internationally?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a gentleman who was brought in about a year and a half ago. I can't say exactly where yet, but there are a couple of locations overseas that probably within 2 years you'll see a few House of Blueses.
The business obviously internationally is a little different outside North America, so it should be interesting to see how that affects the world. But Live Nation being as powerful as they are and already doing the big shows, it seems like there's already a foothold in some of those markets for you guys to do development as well.
Yeah, it's interesting in Europe. I have a call with our UK office and a guy from our French office once a month. It's interesting how promoters and artists and agents interact there versus here, whereas...
And most of the promoters, agents, and managers are the same guy in that market.
Sometimes they are, yeah. But we'll be talking about X artists, NF or 21 Pots, whoever it is, and say, you guys should get on. Like, well, they're already with so-and-so. Like, if you promote their first show, there's some unspoken rule that, like, you're going to be their promoter for life, which still to this day, I'm surprised that the agents
I feel
over there...
That's a thing where the promoter doesn't want to play that room. They listen to them.
Yeah.
I love the concept of this, but I don't think you and me could ever pull it off.
I don't see how you would dial it back here. But I'm surprised the agents over there aren't pitting different promoters against each other as opposed to saying, hey, Dan, you're our promoter for Europe, for X artists. I imagine that'll change at some point, but
even when I own a tour, if we're playing a Live Nation room and I'm told we're playing a Live Nation room, I'm on the phone with you when we're working out the deal and we're figuring out how we're playing the Live Nation room together. It's not, okay, no, this is the other room. That's where we're playing. That's the discussion has been said. That's where we're going. I don't have that control even when I own the tour.
Yeah. And also some of the promoters over there, a lot of them, we don't own very many clubs over there. So it's more of third-party owners. It's like going into a third-party building. Essentially, they're going in and out. They're not owning and operating anything. So eventually, if we have some House of Blues or Fillmore's overseas, it'll be interesting to see how that changes things, if it does at all.
Well, obviously, each market's a different commerce, and they'll take some dialing to get that done.
Yeah.
But you guys have figured out the development in each market in the States. I imagine you guys will continue to do that overseas.
We'd like to, right? I mean, because we want, like I said, I think, we want to have the relationship at the earliest stages.
Now, you guys, obviously, it sounds like Europe is part of that model. Is Asia something you're looking at? Jason C. Miller seems to be having an amazing amount of success over there for Live Nation.
In terms of finding a venue, yes, there are conversations in Asia. I talk to Jason every so often. There's another guy over there, Dennis Argenzia, that I talk to every so often. But I don't know exactly how they operate their business over there.
It would seem like, just based on the success of Coldplay over there, that there's a demand for music at a big level. And obviously, it's easy to say Coldplay's successful everywhere, but
Yeah.
selling out multiple stadium nights in
Mhm.
every market, there's the population and there's the demand. So clearly the supply needs to happen.
Well, and like, I would tell you through 21 Pods, so I did their first 3 tours. And prior to the last one, David Zedek and I started working together a little bit because the band really wanted to become a global act. And Chris Woolman, who manages them, told me that from the earliest conversations we had. And so was asking for our help to get either some better placement on some of our festivals over there and or get on some festivals. And so I started to interact with the Asian folks a little bit, but really more, kind of being on the line and learning. But there's definitely a big market over there.
House of Blues, far from done developing. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for taking the time and talking to us.
Yeah, you're
Promoter
welcome.
101. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah. All right.
Yerke is setting the bar high for how talent buyers should do things. This guy just gets it done. Mad respect to Michael.
This is John Schultz. I'm Windish.
Charlie from Crescent Ballroom.
Craig Newman.
Dave Brooks.
Dave Chumley here.
Dave Ratner.
John Holiday.
Ted Bicknell.
LX.
Umong Shah.
Elliot Lesko.
Gerald B. Henley.
Harlan Fry here.
Jack Ross.
Jason Miller.
Jeffrey Fox. Joe Escalante.
Blair LeBlanc.
Martin Atkins.
Neil Dixon. Nick Farkas.
Paula Palazzo.
And I'm on Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
Promoter 101!
This week, Coachella and Bottle Rock's production mastermind, Ken Deans, is here with us.
Promoter 101, we're joined with one of the great production minds of the industry, Mr. Ken Deans, an icon. Ken, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Dan. What's up?
Yeah, you got to be dead after the weekend. Bottle Rock, Stagecoach, Coachella. Like, you're at the center of all those things. So, man, I'm surprised you're not hibernating right now.
Well, I kind of am. I still have some accounting to wrap up for Coachella and Stagecoach, and I'm still working on a couple of things for Bottle Rock. But yeah, I'm going to take a couple of weeks off and just go hide, not do anything. It was a really long year this year because it just didn't seem like it stopped. Because as soon as we were out of Stagecoach and I was out of Bottle Rock in 2016, it was right into Desert Trip. And Desert Trip was beyond anything I had ever or have ever been involved in my life. It was probably the greatest production I've ever been a part of.
All right, so let's give a picture for a second. Like, you're literally the last guy out of the desert when you guys break down Coachella or Desert Trip or Stagecoach, and you're the first one in. You're actually the guy on site making it all come together.
Yeah, there's two factions of Coachella or the Empire Polo Fields now. There's actually now a year-round team of about 70 people that do nothing but take care of the facilities. And so, I mean, it's a huge undertaking. And then the start of the festivals, I mean, really starts in November and December, where we start having meetings. And then I move out in mid-February and start receiving everything. And it's really about putting all the different pieces of the puzzle in the right piles so that when Kevin Wilkins and the rest of the team comes in, they're going, Ken, we need this. I go, okay, that's over there.
So you're fulfillment, essentially. You're building the site with all the raw resources so they can come in and do what they do, but you're the guy that makes sure it's all there for them.
Exactly. I mean, it's really, we call it logistics. This last Coachella, with the expansion, we had just over 14,000 truck trips in and out to make Coachella and Stagecoach happen.
14,000.
14,000. And it is, I printed over 6,000 venue passes for trucks, and that doesn't include all the food and beverage. That doesn't include, the multiple trips that each of these trucks make. We, on average, will have 2.5 trips per pass on a truck.
So you're essentially building a civilization each year in the middle of the desert and then breaking it down again so nobody ever had a clue that you were there.
One of the greatest things that happened, and this was a Desert Trip, And I don't know if you saw it or went or you've seen the videos of it. We built a stadium with grandstands and full-on luxury suites and VIP areas, and it just went on and on and on. One of my neighbors where I live is head of theme park construction for Disney. So, they decided to go. And as we're sitting there, I went out and met him at the mix position. And he looked at me and goes, I had no idea that this place existed. He said, how many years have you been doing shows out there? If I knew Coachella was like this, I would have come out. And I just looked at him and said, David, 21 days ago, they were playing polo on this field. And his jaw hit the ground. He goes, that's impossible. This would have taken us 2.5 years to build at Disney. For Desert Trip, we had 21 days to build it. For Coachella, we have about 11 days to build Coachella. And then we have 5 days to tear it down. And it is going in with a full-on battle plan. And as soon as the last polo match comes off the field, we just put our foot to the, pedal to the metal and go until Thursday at 11 a.m. when the doors open. So
it sounds like a logistics nightmare.
It is in some respects. I mean, it is a bunch of controlled chaos in some parts of it, but the team is so amazing that we know how to manipulate it and how to make things go into the right places. And really, it's like you look at Kevin Wilkins, who's, the conductor out on the field, and, we're in constant contact all day long, going back and forth. And, so, yeah, sometimes it gets a little crazy, but we've got a pretty good handle on probably 90% of the traffic as it's going in and out. But that also comes with Kevin's been doing it since day one, and this was my 10th Coachella this last year. Yeah, controlled chaos.
That's amazing. How do you get to the place where you are the guy that they call and say, build this production city that the Rolling Stones is going to be on top of, build this massive world that the biggest alternative bands in the world will be doing EDM in a tent, and that thousands of fans will be safe in? How do we get there? Where do you start that brings you from this is the guy that can do this versus any random guy that's running sound at a club and loading in a semi? Because it's a major jump.
It is. And it was certainly an evolutionary process. So I started out in Seattle. And I started in Seattle as a musician. And the band I was in, we got signed through this deal and we were signed through a very side deal of a label called EPA that was around back in the late 70s, early 80s. They don't exist anymore. And I, as a musician, of course, I wasn't making enough money to make ends meet. So our manager was a guy named Ken Kinnear, who had a promotion company called Albatross Productions. And I started becoming a runner. And that was my opening into the world, and started meeting people, and over the course of the years worked with different people, expanded my contacts and my network. And then for about 5, almost 6 years, Kelly Curtis and I were partners.
Pearl Jam fame.
So Kelly and I had Mother Love Bone and Alice in Chains from the very beginning. When both those bands went sideways, we split up the company, and I kept the production side of it and kept going, and he kept the management side of it. And then, that's where I met Kevin Wilkins, because he was working for the lighting company that Alice in Chains was using in Europe, and they hired him as the tour manager and brought him over to the U.S. And so Kevin came to Seattle. Kevin and I became very good friends because I was promoting all the shows. And then we just kind of continued our friendship. And I had actually jumped out of the music business and went into the corporate event world. And at the end of 2008,
it disappeared. With the economic crash, nobody was spending stupid money on parties anymore.
Right. Well, the economy went to shit. Everybody had problems. It definitely changed everybody's game, and only the strong survived. And clearly, you evolved and figured out a way to keep going.
So I just started calling my friends and said, "Hey, I need work." And Kevin goes, "Well, hey, we want to expand our people out here at Coachella because it's going to get bigger. We have this position managing the fuel. Would you like to come out and do that?" So I went out and did that. And then I started looking at other things around it, and we just kind of evolved the position. And over the years, it's evolved and logically evolved from managing all of the things that come in. We then created what we call our truck stop. And I've got 13 lanes that can handle 6 to 8 trucks in each lane. And then we just divide them all up and put, here's sound, here's lights, here's staging, and we just pull them off the line as we need them and put them in. And it really has been an amazing evolution from where I started to where it is now.
All right, well, let's talk about your lag of time between the loadout of Stagecoach this year into building Bottle Rock. How much time is there?
So I left Friday at 3 p.m., got home, had dinner with my wife, went to sleep, woke up Saturday, did laundry, went to sleep, woke up Sunday, made Mother's Day breakfast for my wife, got in my car and drove to Bottle Rock. So really one day at home.
And if you're going to pick one day to be home, that's the day, Mother's Day. Well done, sir. In total, you were on site from beginning of building Coachella into breaking down Stagecoach. How long were you on
80
site?
80 days this year.
Wow, I mean, even prisoners get conjugal in that amount of time. Jesus, dude. Okay, so you're home for 2 days.
Yeah.
Then how long are you on stage at Bottle Rock, or on site at Bottle Rock?
So this year I was on site from May 15th to June 3rd.
Okay, so not quite as bad. Is there a different world in dealing with the AEG world of Coachella on how they do festivals on the other side of how Live Nation does festivals? I mean, you're going from left to right, AC/DC almost here between the two big companies.
So yes, Live Nation bought a controlling interest in Bottle Rock this year. Prior to that, there are 3 partners that were the original investors in the first year who, after everything went to shit and the whole bankruptcy ensued, they got together and they said, we're not really prepared to walk away from $8 million. Is there a way we can turn this around? And we know we won't make our money back in the next 2 or 3 years, but is there a way we can turn it around, keep the event going, and move forward? And they met up with a bunch of people, and then one of the guys that came in and really helped turn it around is Steve McFadgen. And Steve called me to come up and help manage the labor and the payroll, because it was a unique situation in that it's a hybrid labor pool, in that the stages are all union labor and then the rest of the labor for the festival is non-union. So you have to really understand and know and watch and manage. These festivals are not inexpensive.
Let's just be clear. You said not inexpensive.
Yeah.
That's what. Let's highlight that word, because that came out real quick, and I want to be clear about that.
Yeah. So let's not make it a double negative and turn it back around. They're incredibly expensive to do. And, I get a half a dozen calls a year from people who go, hey, I've got this great idea for a festival. I've got 5 million or 10 million or 2 million, and I don't expect to make, much more than 3 or 5 million in the first year. And I just kind of stop right there and just say, hey, guys, you've got to look at these festivals as standalone businesses. And anybody who's had any business classes, you're not looking at, for any solid business venture that you put together, 3 to 5 years before there's any kind of meaningful profit.
If you're
lucky. I mean, I was listening to, this goes back to, some of the adages in our business. I mean, if you took a business plan for a festival to your business professor at college, he'd flunk you, or she would flunk you, because the margin doesn't make any sense. You know, when you look at some of these festivals, the only way they work is because of the volume. And, you know, if Coachella had to go back down to 80,000 people a day, it'd fail.
Because it's just that expensive to produce.
Oh, yeah. And Bottle Rock, you know, now that these guys have really done a great job of dialing it in without experience, and God bless them, these guys are open and they listen. So you don't have to experience all the mistakes that you normally would starting up in our industry without having the experience. But, you know, so Bottle Rock is becoming more of a boutique festival.
Yeah, it certainly seems like they do a more wide range lineup that's built for not just the EDM kids that most of the festivals are going after now, but they definitely have more of an adult taste that they've built in,
They do.
as they have what Kaboo is doing in San Diego as well, where it's a lineup where it's a lot of different music and yet grabs maybe a tad older.
And, you know, Napa is not cheap. You know, even without a festival, hotel rooms are $250 to $500 a night. So, you know, in that world, it's the wine country. You know, I walk around and look at all the different wine bars, and glasses of wine are, you know, 15 to 18. Some are as high as $30 a glass, and they're doing brisk business. And as almost any promoter will know, it's all about the popcorn. You know, it's like if you're breaking in a festival situation or an open field. I was partners with Lowell McGregor in Columbia Meadows for 3 years. And if we broke even on the tickets at the door between production and the guarantees, we were pretty happy.
So you're running your amphitheater business the same way people run their bar business, like break even at the door, great, because then it's all red meat for us.
Exactly.
Very cool. Hey, let's talk about for a second how somebody gets into this. College kid listening, wants to break into the business, they're willing to do anything. How do they get on your crew?
Over the last 5 years, I've gone to the University of Montana and I've done some guest lecturing. And I've actually brought some people from the university and brought them out there.
So they need to go to the University of Montana to get your attention?
No, but that's one way. Really, they need to start finding ways to get a hold of people like me. And if they just start finding whether they want to get into artist transportation, or if they want to be a runner, or if they want to become a stagehand, you know, you can start going to most all the places now have Facebook pages. AEG has an intern Facebook page. I'm assuming Live Nation does as well. And you just start finding your way in there. And quite honestly, if I was a young college student, I would go to a Polestar.
You're not talking about the magazine. You're talking about the conference the magazine hosts, Polestar Live in February,
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, I would go to Polestar Live, and then, or I would go to TourLink, which is another conference that's in January. Yeah.
I think TourLink's going away. I'm told it may not be happening.
Yeah, you know, that it's tough to keep those things going, you know?
I don't know if that's the official word, but I'm hearing that it's not coming back from some very high up guys. So I'm thinking that that's probably done for. But obviously that's a great hang. Although Production Live that Polestar does the day before Polestar and TourLink are like a day apart. And they really need to figure out a way to keep these two conferences away from each other. Because A, production guys can't be off the road for a week. B, you're not going to go to both usually. You're going to go to one or the other. So a handful of the bigger guys can be at both because they can afford it and the resources are there. So I think they need to break them up by 5-6 months apiece, put them on the opposite side of the year, and hope for the best.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense as well. And especially, you know, if you can push one into the fall. And Polestar, it's entrenched. So
right, that ain't moving.
That one's not moving. And I'll tell you, Production Live that Steve McFadgen created and put together has been doing really well. And it's a really good place to hang out at a bar and meet people. And that's, you know, if I'm going to tell kids or younger people anything to do, it still really is about who you know, and it's about meeting people. And it's about presenting yourself. I hired a guy this year that I met from one of these phone calls where they say, yeah, we've got 3 million and we want to do a Latin festival in Orlando. And, as the time kept going on, they didn't really have the money. But I met a guy on the phone call who was an operational guy on the ground who at the time was working for the DNC doing campaign work for Hillary. And he was really sounded good on the phone, really buttoned down guy. I had never met him in person, but because he spent so much time talking to me and explaining to me all the things that he was doing and the credentials, I had a person fall out and I called him up and gave him a shot and he was awesome.
Very cool. Ken, hey, I want to thank you so much for giving us some time and talking to us on Promoter 101. You're obviously within the icons of the business, and a lot of people look to you to figure out how the fuck to build a site for a festival, because nobody has any idea how to actually do that, and you're the guy that makes those visions jump off the page into reality.
Well, I'm a part of that. It really does take a pretty amazing team of people to make it all work together. To try and tackle it all as one person would just be suicidal.
No, you're the colonel that's sending the troops out in the field, but you're the one with the organization and clearly modest. Thank you so much for giving us some time today.
Okay, Dan, thanks.
First guy in, last guy out every time. Gotta respect that. Just don't forget to kill the lights on your way out, Ken.
This is Troy Blakely with APA. I'm on Promoter 101, and I don't know why I'm not a promoter.
This week, we close with a little technology. Dan discusses how tech is changing the world of merch with Atvenu's Shaun Eidson.
Promoter 101, we're joined by a good friend, Shaun from Atvenu. Thank you so much for being with us this afternoon.
I'm stoked to be here. Thanks for having me.
Haven't had you yet, man. Don't start those rumors.
That's true. All right. Well, hopefully this goes well. And I guess you having me does sound a bit funky. So I'm just glad to be here.
Yeah, we'll get to the first drink and we'll see where we get to the end of the night. Let's not go too far ahead. So you've moved on from Eventbrite, which is where I originally know you from, and you've moved on. You're at Venue, and you guys have created software for the merchandise world, right? For festivals and touring acts, so to speak, from my understanding.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Joined that Venue team in early January, and just like you said, we've built technology to help artists, venues, and festivals better manage their merch inventory, their sales, and the settlement with either the artist or the arena.
Okay, well, you guys in the software world are supposed to be really fucking smart, but you guys spell venue the way people spell menu. You fucking forgot the E, and I'm supposed to trust you to be smarter than me with technology? What's the deal, dude? Where the fuck is the E?
Yeah, it's funny because I often find myself dropping an E in there. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but we'll have to ask some of the co-founders around how they came up with the name. But I wish I had a better story to tell you. I just don't at the time.
Now, it's at Venue and it's one word, so I'm kind of wondering if it's like, is this written for a Twitter space kind of name? And are you on Twitter just the @sign at Venue? Or is it the @sign then AT spelled out with the VENU?
It's redundant on Twitter. It can be redundant in emails like this is Shaun at Venue. So yeah, I mean,
a little bit back of a throwback to the a little bit. Maybe?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm sure that it's a great way to own your trademark by spelling venue like menu. So we'll just assume that you guys are next level hip.
I think we're just ahead of the game, frankly. I just don't think people haven't caught up to us yet. So and it speaks to really the technology behind what we do. So. Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
Well, let's talk about for a moment what you guys have done for the record labels and the touring bands, because this is a really cool thing that you offer for bands on the road to simplify their life and to track SoundScan. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, initially when that venue was built almost 5 years ago now, really it was built specifically for the touring artist. And one of the first things that venue went out and did was created a partnership with Nielsen SoundScan. So any music sales that were reported from the road would be automatically sent to Nielsen SoundScan. And really that kicked off kind of what that venue was about. It was a no-brainer. Almost every record label you can think of immediately got on board, and we were up and running with that right off the bat.
Okay, so you guys work with festivals, not just acts. How does the festival thing work? And you're working with some of the biggest festivals in the game, right? I mean, we're talking about like Coachella names, right?
That's exactly right. So Coachella has been a great partner of ours for a number of years. Stagecoach, we work with Life is Beautiful. We work with Bottle Rock, Gov Ball, Meadows, Electric Forest. South by Southwest has been a great festival partner of ours for a number of years. And, obviously when in the festival context, as opposed to the artist context, an artist has one artist and he's playing 60 shows. But in the festival space, you're talking about accepting the advancing of merch and the management of merch, and then the settlement at the end of the festival, can be anywhere from 15 to 75 bands, depending on the size of the festival. And you can imagine using Excel and notepads and all that, a lot of stuff gets lost in the shuffle, and t-shirts end up missing, and the festival ends up having to pay, retail price for that. So we wanted to build something that would allow folks to keep better track of that and have a better experience with their artists, and make sure the artists were getting paid quickly and accurately. So, yeah, that's a good question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so you guys have created better software than the Excel sheet, which I find impossible to believe exists because I'm true and blue an Excel head. But, just this year, my staff got me on Google Docs for some of the things that we've always tracked as Excel, just so we can be in the same document simultaneously, and it blew my fucking mind.
Nice,
so,
yeah. Well, yeah,
I'm still just jumping from AIM to Slack, in the last year. So, I'm a little behind the curve here. But technology speaking, for the band on the road, and not necessarily for every band, because there's an expense to what's involved. I think we were talking $200 a month to license the software, something like that.
Well, yeah, it really depends on how involved with the software you want to get. We offer a few different packages depending on the budget of the band, right? So a developing band that's just acting as a support for a lot of headlining artists, we offer it's $10 per touring month. So if you're not touring 6 months out of the year, we understand that. We all come from this industry. We know it's a tough industry as a developing artist to make a living in. And so, the $10 will automatically send your music sales a SoundScan. But if you want to be able to manage your merchandise and advance it to venues and all that kind of festivals, it becomes $60, and then up to $200, which is, really some of the biggest acts out there. Like you're talking like Beyonce, you're talking Justin Bieber, Kanye, folks like Bruno Mars, Dierks Bentley.
These aren't just examples of hypothetical. These are actual clients.
No, these are actual clients. Yeah. And obviously I'm not going to speak to kind of what they're paying and all that stuff, but that it's such a big business for these artists that at this point they use our technology, which, again, scales with what you're paying to even forecast what they're going to need and what kind of merchandise they should think about buying for upcoming tours, right? So they're not sitting on 5,000 t-shirts at the end of their 60-day run. We help them with everything from managing different warehouses, different tour trailers. There's one in Canada, there's one in the States, and then helping them forecast what their sales will look like based on some of the numbers we've seen from them or that they give us. So it could get pretty advanced.
You just mentioned Canada and the States. Now, are you guys working globally, or are you guys just featured on North America?
So North America right now, but obviously with the festivals in Europe. Now we can use the software. We have Justin Bieber just wrapped up a few shows in Australia, which he did insane, some of the biggest numbers we've ever seen. Probably because he doesn't tour there very often. But software can be used anywhere. But right now our focus is on folks based in North America. So we do Cavendish Beach Music Festival in Canada, Ottawa Blues Fest. Some of the bigger festivals up there.
You went to Justin Bieber into the Ottawa Blues Fest. That is
in the same sentence, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much. I think.
I apologize.
No, and I think it all wraps together because Justin is Canadian, and I think we all know that at the heart of every Justin Bieber song is true, real, heartfelt blues.
I would say so. Yes. At the end of the day, that's what he's singing about: love lost and love won and all that good stuff. And I should note that we actually are a Canadian company. The majority of our engineers and product stuff folks are actually based in Calgary. So a little shout out to our Canadian friends there.
You got an easy system to use.
It's easy to teach, it's easy to buy, it takes you off the Excel platform, and it supports touring as well as helping bands report their numbers directly to SoundScan. So albums are being counted on the road in real time, and people don't forget about it for 6 months. So it's actually being taken into account, getting you to your gold records quicker. How do bands sign up for this?
They can go to atvenu.com and send us an email. There's a little form they can fill out, and someone will get back to them as soon as possible. It's really simple as that.
Okay, so tell us, and how does somebody reach out to you if they want to give you the credit for the sale directly?
Well, here we go with the redundancy, but it's Shaun, SHAUN, at Atvenu, ATVENU.com. Shaun
Excellent.
at Atvenu.com.
Excellent. And since we're not all just business here, you got a young family, you got that whole vibe, you're traveling less, staying home more. How's that all going?
It's good. My daughter and I appreciate you asking. My daughter just turned 1. We threw a big party for her. You'll probably find me at a few select festivals this summer, but certainly not the number of festivals I attended last year, which is bittersweet. And I obviously love this industry and helping folks, make more money and streamline their operations. But it's also good to be home with the little one.
Yeah, those dad years, you don't want to miss those
I
early
don't.
days. That's important.
No.
All right. Well, thank you so much for talking with Shaun. Have an awesome time. Thanks for tuning in to Promoter 101.
All right. Thanks again.
Technology making everything count on the way out and on the way in for merch, making the world a better place. Hey, thanks, Shaun.
This is Stephen Riff from Embrace Presents in Toronto, Canada, and I'm stoked to be on Promoter 101.
Well, kids, episode 39 is in the books.
Join again next week as we host rock manager icons Andy Gould and Rob McDermott, ICM partners Mike Hayes, and San Francisco music techs Brian Zisk on Promoter 101.
If you have thoughts or feedback about the podcast, let us know. Send us an email with your ideas to steiny@promoter101.net.
Until next week, may all your shows be sold out. Cheers.
Hey, this is Mike McGinley.
Troy Blakely.
Mitch Rose.
Peter Katzis. Mike Hayes. Tony from APA.
Vince Bannon.
Sean Healy.
Steve Rennian.
Rick Canny.
Sam Kincaid.
Rob McDermott. Happy to be here on Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.